Starting your own practice is hard for many chiropractors. It's riddled with both struggles and successes. But here at the Chiropractic Philanthropist, we make it easy by having chiropreneurs and entrepreneurs share their struggles and lessons learned in life and in business so that you don't have to make the same mistakes. And now, here's your host, Dr. Kelly Polzin.
All right, welcome everyone. It is a pleasure. My guest today is a trendsetter, a groundbreaker. It's Dr. Daniel Knowles out of Boulder, Colorado. Dr. Daniel, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here today. As you know, the motto here is that we are all more alike than we are different. So, Dr. Daniel, why don't you start by just telling us about you? What is it that drives you?
Well, thank you for having us here. Thank you for having me here. Right now, snow is coming down in Boulder, Colorado. I'm in the Mile High State, so I'm at 5,280 feet plus, and I like living life high altitude. I did not always live my life high altitude. I grew up in New York City in a little apartment in the Bronx, and thought the last thing I ever wanted to do is be a doctor, but found my way to Sherman College of Straight Chiropractic at the time. That's what it was called, Sherman College Straight Chiropractic. After graduating from NYU, and went to Sherman College on passion to change the world, because at that time you could not go to every state in the world, in the country. You can only go to 13 states when we graduated, but I went there as determined that Sherman was the underdog. They had the real values of chiropractic and principles, and was going to have a great foundation. And then little did I know that I'd meet the love of my life, my wife, at Sherman College, and stayed an extra couple of years. I got to tell you, for a New York City kid to stay an extra 2 years in Spartanburg, South Carolina, that's not easy. So, but that's real love. And then set up shop in Boulder, Colorado. What many people don't know about me is I'm actually a second generation chiropractor. My mom and stepdad are chiropractors. My mom, Jackie Knowles, just went to NYCC while I was in high school, and that's how I found my way to chiropractic. And my stepdad, Donnie Epstein, the founder of Network Chiropractic and Network Spinal, and they started dating when she was finishing up chiropractic school, and that's how I discovered what chiropractic was and found my way towards Sherman College, and then have been changing spines, lives, and minds as much as I can and make as much impact as possible out of home base of Boulder, which is a beautiful place to live. And it's beautiful right now. The snow coming down, it's amazing.
Wow, you just hit so many things. Let me rewind you to one. You said your stepdad is Dr. Epstein?
Yeah.
The founder of Network. Yeah,
that's my dad, my stepdad. Yep.
Wow. So talk about an influence in your life then. That must have been absolutely huge.
Every single day it still is. And, it's a huge blessing and a huge gift. And I teach network around the world, and it's given me a whole foundation philosophically, and brought me to the chiropractic principles in an incredible depth. And, it's a great gift to travel and teach and mentor people to be successful in the philosophy, science, and art, and particularly through network per se. So I have a lot of fun doing that. Travel a lot, my wife and I teaching, and it's a gift. I've been involved with helping people in the Network Transformational Gate Weekend since the late 90s, and a lot of fun changing lives for the better and practicing. So I'm going to just relinquish my ignorance. I was traditionally trained within the Pettibon system. Yeah. Give me the 30,000 view. What have I been missing in network? Well, that's a really interesting thing. Pettibon, Pettibon, Stillwagon, Donnie Epstein. What people don't necessarily realize, his foundation was upper cervical. Very dedicated upper cervical, taught by Tom Whitehorn, and who was his instructor at Columbia before it became NYCC. And if you know, Pettibon, Stillwagon, Pierce worked together, and actually people called it Pierce Stillwagon. They said it should have been called Pierce Stillwagon Whitehorn, because Whitehorn made a big influence and in sort of the upper cervical focus. But that was his underpinning. And then he learned more about Logan and toughness and DNFT, and realized actually along the lines of this podcast that you mentioned were more the same than different, or something like that was what you said.
Of course. Yeah.
His outlook at that point, practicing upper cervical, was, there's brilliance in all these different chiropractic approaches. And rather than throw rocks at each other, where are they? What gift do they each all have, and how can you bring them together in such a way that the sum is more than its individual parts, or however you say that saying. Yeah. And network is originally a network of when do you use these different approaches and what sequence was that? And that was the foundation of it. And he developed a protocol of osseous, that there was two types of subluxation, osseous and facilitated, and that all these, when is there time to do a toughness type adjustment contact versus a Pierce type adjustment, and they both have brilliance in them, and when is what. As that developed, it developed into a protocol as he continued on his growth path. And then from that, it was never the intention an oscillation or wave started to develop in people's bodies, which was not his goal or outcome. It happened to be as a effect that people started having these wave responses as he sequenced the care in a certain way, and then realized that that was really innate intelligence assembling forces in the person's body to change the behavior patterns, the structure of the nerve system. So, and then as he, further went down that path, network developed, in greater complexity, in its organization. So a lot of fun teaching that, a lot of fun being on that ride and watching that development from the time I was in high school, when there was barely a thing of a wave happening. So, right. Yeah.
So you've been pushing or teaching the network system for a while. When I started kind of that traditional training within the Padawan system, essentially, you go in, you get inundated for a weekend, and your mind is shifted. On Monday, you come out and you're going to be doing things differently. If I went to a network weekend, which I'm assuming they're like weekends, yeah. Okay. Am I starting to change my practice style on Monday, or is this like a year-long process before I've got like some skills that I can actually go and implement?
Here's the thing. People are different. I like to say some people are crock pots and some are microwaves.
Okay.
Some people, simmer with something really long, and some people bing, and they, popcorn's out in, 30 seconds or whatever it is. Okay. And I generally tell people, honestly, when people go to a network program that I teach, their world is turned upside down, and everything they thought relative to what's possible for the human body and the spinal nerve system changing shifts. And they're like, I can't wait to do this and change everything. And usually I tell them, don't do that, because the people that are seeing you have agreed to seeing you in a certain context. Right. And if you throw out the baby with the bathwater, it's not necessarily the best business decision. Now, some people don't listen. I usually tell people, just do what you're doing and do a little bit of what you learned from this weekend and integrate it in. That will be a better business decision, but some people don't listen. Some people are so enthralled that they just want to go all in and do everything with what they learn in that weekend. However, there's very much a way that you can integrate and bring the new clinical skills, analysis skills, the skill sets you have with your hands that you didn't even know existed, to what you're currently doing, so you can grow and make a transition. I personally, I think that's healthier, but some people like, just running out into the storm, right? So it just depends on the person. So totally that's a good answer.
Okay. So I think you touched on it before, but like within our TCP family, we really like to have mottos or quotes, sayings, to keep kind of, to give an idea of who the individual is. Mm-hmm. What is the quote or motto that kind of drives you on a daily basis?
It's this: give more, serve more, and receive more. Something that irks me is when people lead with that their focus is making money. Now, I like making money. I very much do. And I like having beautiful things and being prosperous and all of that. As a driving force, as a why, it's kind of shallow and empty. I like focusing on what am I going to give in what I am bringing to the world. If I'm taking care of people in my office and we're setting up a marketing plan or an event, or just I'm going tableside, I'm focusing on what I am going to give to this person. If I'm going to go do an event for my office, like say a spinal screening or something like that, I'm not going to show up. How much money am I going to get, and how many people am I going to get it? I'm going to show up with what do I have to give the people that cross my path today. If I put on a program like a network program, what can I give the people that have taken their time, energy, money, resources, time they could have had with their family, or just watching TV, that they're going to get, what are they going to get from this experience? What am I going to give my best of to them? If I'm training people in our lifetime wellness system and helping them have a stellar practice, what am I going to give to those attendees that makes it that they got more than they possibly dreamed of out of their investment of their time, energy, and money? I always going to lead with that from my heart, and how can I not only just give more, how can I serve and impact more people? And that's what's going to capitalize, or be those words, give more and serve more, are going to be capitalized, and they're going to be all caps, and then the receive more I know is inevitable. If you do that with the right heart, the right soul, conviction, and you're giving something of value, the receiving is going to happen. But if I reverse those, that doesn't really go as well, and people sense it. They feel it around you. Right. So even your team, if you have a team in your office and you're leading with how are you going to make me money, that's not going to go as it's going to be different in terms of the type of life you have and the way people feel around you, as compared to how can this person that decided they're going to trade their time to work for me, how are they going to, what am I going to give to them that they're going to grow in this experience? And they're going to feel like, I'm gaining, not just in my paycheck, but just being around this office, so it's a way of life. And, my overall mission or what it is that I feel I do. And so many people do this, but they don't realize this, is connect people to more. In some way, whether it be a practice member or it's going to be a doctor or it's a student, how am I connecting that person to more than their current life experience?
Got it. Right. Because you're expanding their lives.
Right.
And now you actually, you do a couple other things other than in your own practice. You are connected with or the main driving force behind the Mile High yearly seminar, right?
That is true. That's me and a team of a little bit of rowdy Mile High marshals that want to, make sure that the main thing stays the main thing in chiropractic in Colorado. There's, a few years back, actually, when I opened my office in Colorado, the first day I had a letter from the state board to cease and desist. The first day we opened was in the mail. And what happened was I was taking care of some of the Denver Broncos out of their home. They wanted network care. I was driving to their house to take care of them. And this became a news story. And Life University picked it up in Today's Chiropractic and published me with some players. And somebody in the state of Colorado decided, that was a chiropractor, that, hey, I don't like that this guy's taking care of the Denver Broncos, and decided to report it to the board. And then it turned out that they just somehow said I was not licensed, and I was licensed. Okay. But they had my name spelled wrong. So they showed up as non-licensed, and because they typed in my name and said he didn't have a license. And here's this article about him taking care of professional athletes and so on. So that was the cease and desist. I said, no, I've got my license right here. I didn't even notice my license had my name spelled wrong. I just didn't. It was like one letter off, and it just didn't register in my brain. I was just so excited to open my office. And so they cleared that up, but that gave them the impetus to decide to get all the records of all the athletes I was taking care of, because they wanted to see what I was doing. And then they decided to, that basically I was focused on location analysis and correction of subluxation, and that was what I was doing in practice. I wasn't doing anything else. And they wanted to lambast me for not doing all kinds of diagnosis. And so I fought a battle for several years with the state board about that. Thankfully, you may remember this person, Terry Ronberg. Okay, the World Chiropractic License. He and several others, Christopher Kent, and my malpractitioner, all came to my aid to, support, that, hey, you're asking him to do non-chiropractic tests. He just wants to adjust subluxation, so we don't want to do all these other things. And ended up doing well and getting the case thrown out without going into much detail. But that fired me up to make sure that people had the right to adjust people with or without symptoms, just because in and of themselves, subluxations are a detriment to people's health, and that they could just practice chiropractic purely. So we started a Chiropractic Wellness Alliance, and then that became the Mile High annual chiropractic event that it is now. We're going into our 11th year this coming year. So super thrilled about it. We've had 10 incredible years. It's gone further than I anticipated. And it's really brought together community of chiropractors that are like-minded, that have the values and of our foundational principles in their hearts, and in their focus, being able to come together, have camaraderie, and have more of a community rather than being our own rugged individualists in our offices that are not necessarily connected. And we need that in chiropractic.
Oh my gosh, do we ever need that? I love that you kept the fight going, because a lot of us get bullied by the boards, and we don't stand up to the board. And you think when you're just opening your practice, that is where you are like so vulnerable. You're so exposed. You don't even have you don't have momentum yet. You don't and for them to just come in and give you a cease and desist and then open you up to all kinds of scrutiny, dude, my hat's off to you. Congratulations. How long ago was this?
That was when we opened 99, and it was like 5 years of our life fighting it. And it was very painful because, as what you just said, you're most vulnerable when you first open. My wife's a chiropractor. We had 2 sets of student loans. We had a new baby, and we're like, what are you talking about? But sometimes the most difficult situations become the biggest gifts, because
100%.
If that hadn't happened, it wouldn't have pushed me. Mile High wouldn't exist right now, right? It wouldn't have pushed me to do the things that we did and build the muscle that I needed around that to help as much as possible. Now we have a Mile High Foundation that's a nonprofit to help protect chiropractors that might fall into similar situations. So and that's all from we have this incredible gift in chiropractic, and we want people to be able to thrive and do that unencumbered by inappropriate legal stances. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I always have massive respect for people that can share their full story, because everybody looks at you outwardly, they're looking at you. You have a massive, big practice. You have a consulting business where you're helping other practice owners, develop their practice. You've created your own seminar where you're bringing professionals together to help encourage their own growth. 11 years of success. And it looks like you just did it all easily. But the truth is, right? The truth is you've been through the trenches. You've had the struggles. You've emerged successful because you've stayed true to your purpose.
And purpose is a big thing for chiropractors. It's a pretty big thing for everybody, but that sets your compass to true north. So and when you have that, then it helps you guide your decision making. So thank you for saying that.
Honestly, I've got the pleasure of dealing with my own set of doctors, coaching my own set, and like you said, a lot, then they graduate, there is no purpose, there's no direction, they are so lost. And to have somebody like yourself that they can reach out to and so say, hey, come here, we're going to go this way and it's going to be okay, because when we go this way, you are going to have alignment in your purpose and in your vision. And I feel like that's what you're providing people.
That's what myself and my wife and my parents also are about, and the sad thing is, I know this, when people become chiropractors, it's not an accident. Somehow they end up on this path. There's a calling that brings them to it. And sadly, they don't all get the tools and resources to succeed the way they could. And you have the most powerful healing art in the history of the planet in your hands. Abundance and success and prosperity and people knocking down your doors should be the norm. And people don't necessarily know how to align those values and principles if they even got introduced to them. That's a whole nother thing, right? But to align those with business and with coordinating and optimizing a team and all of that, those are a lot of things to align. When you align them, it can be more effortless, but when there's not, it can be a lot of efforting. And it's sad because then chiropractors don't always have the impact and live a life worthy of the calling that they had. And so supporting them to be able to do that, it's an honor and privilege to have that.
Yeah, 100%. I totally appreciate and acknowledge what you're doing there, Doc. Okay, so let's go into we call it the TCP time machine. So in the time machine, you get to look back at yourself, in those times of struggles, maybe as a new grad. What advice would you have given yourself back then from today's knowledge that you have on where the world is going and what you've been through?
This is going to be a little unique, just so you know. It's
okay.
Not going to be.
I like it.
It's not going to be necessarily what you think, because I have a different life experience there, Kelly. So I'm assuming you know this. Maybe you don't. A few years ago, I had a couple life-threatening health emergencies. Are that something you're aware of, or are we going down a whole
no, I didn't. I was unaware.
Yeah. Okay. So when you have that, your looking back is a little different. So in 2018, I came home from my office. I exercise, still do, 6 times a week in the morning, about 4:30, 5 a.m. And I came out from office after seeing 100-something-ish people for that day, ate dinner, and ended up on the floor writhing around in agony, like literally screaming because I had so much abdominal pain. And after hours of my wife saying we're going to the ER and me saying as a chiropractor, we're not going to any ER, until like 3 a.m. when she finally was like, we're going, went there and they were doing all kinds of abdominal exams. I'm screaming in so much pain and they didn't find anything. And the doctors, as they're doing things with a stethoscope, say, you have an enlarged heart. And I said, I was not the best patient, to be honest. I think the typical fired up chiropractor as a patient in ER, I would be about as bad. But they're checking my heart. And I said, if everybody tells me I have a big heart, why are you checking my heart? It's abdominal pain. And I said, well, you have normally it's enlarged. And they said, and you have a murmur. And I said, what do you mean I have a murmur? Did anybody ever tell you a murmur? I said, no one's ever told me I have a murmur. And they said, we're going to do an EKG. And I'm like, they're quacks. Why are they checking my heart? The pain is in my stomach. Does that sound like a chiropractor? Why are you checking the neck? The pain's in my lower back. And I was like, why are you checking my heart? It's abdominal pain. What, you guys don't know what you're doing. And they ting out the EKG and they said, you're in late stage heart failure. And when they said that, I said, Rochelle, we're going home. They don't know what they're doing. There's no way I'm in heart failure. I exercised this morning. I did 100 push-ups, 100 pull-ups, 100 sit-ups in between sprints. That's what I do every day. How can I be in heart failure? Right. And so they made me stay overnight. I told them, hey, look, I actually told them, look, I'm going to a baseball game with my kids tomorrow. I'll come back and you can do the exam. I'm not staying here overnight. And they're like, no, you're staying. And I was like, no, really, there's a fireworks game. I'm going to enjoy that with my kids. I'll come back. I promise. And they're like, no, you're in heart failure. There's no way you're going anywhere. And so I said, all right, I'll humor you. You guys don't know what you're doing. I'll stay overnight. And when they next day, this is an important lesson, especially as someone who knows Pedabon. When the cardiologist came in the morning and they did a visual, they did a heart exam and showed me the blue blood is going the wrong way and the red blood's going the wrong way. Basically, I had an abnormal valve since birth. And no one ever told me. And it was in late stages. And it was blowing off pieces into my body. And I had stomach pain because a piece had lodged into my abdomen. And that's why I had stomach pain. And they had to do immediate surgery on replace the heart valve, replace my aorta, because I was that bad. And luckily I survived. And so then about 6 months later, healed up. I still put on Mile High, believe it or not. 3 months later, I was on stage and we put on Mile High. They actually pulled out the IV. I had to do it. It was in heart infection that I had gotten because I had no valve. They had to pull out the IV in the hotel room to stop the antibiotic. I had to do an IV antibiotic for 3 months after a heart infection in the hotel room, like an hour before I went on stage.
Okay.
I'm not kidding. That's what happened. But 6 months later, it's very common. People have heart surgeries, have strokes. It's a very common thing after a heart surgery. And 6 months later, I had a stroke. And I literally was talking, and people were saying it doesn't make sense. And my kids were like, "You're not making any sense." I had a stroke. And so they brought me to the hospital. They said, told that, and they wanted to do a second heart surgery because they felt the first heart surgery didn't get all the infection out, and they had to do another one. Well, here's the thing: the doctor told my wife and my kids in front of them that he needs another heart surgery. We need to do it now. That's why he had the stroke, and he may not make it. He has an 80% chance of not making it. If he does make it, he's going to be housebound the rest of his life. And my wife said to the doctor, well, let's find the scenario where my husband lives. And she didn't listen to them. And we went back and forth. They said, what other testing we can do? They ended up saying, well, we could do a cardiac MRI. We didn't do that. It would take 5 hours in a tube. I said, well, I'll do the 5 hours in a tube. That's fine, to determine that. And then that gave some information that was questionable of whether to do the surgery just by asking the question and to do let's do this additional test, which how often do people in a hospital, you'll question the doctor, right? They don't, especially in that scenario. But they did other tests. They questioned it more. And it turned out, they said, we're going to get you to a different, we don't know if you need to do the surgery or not. And, at this point, they wouldn't transfer me to another hospital because the insurance wouldn't pay to transfer me to a Denver hospital. It wouldn't cover it. And what happened was the nurse, who was her last day as a nurse, she was retiring the next day, was there. And she said that she researched and told us that the insurance will cover, it wouldn't cover to go to Denver. Hell, it wouldn't cover to go to Denver. They would cover to air flight me to the Cleveland Clinic. Wouldn't pay for Denver, but would pay for the Cleveland Clinic because it was a center of excellence. And if you're going to a center of excellence, a different classification of hospital, that because the case merited that, they would take me and pay for it. It was a $500,000 bill when we got the final bill. Okay, so I went on a jet. I was in Cleveland in 2 hours or something crazy with my wife and Donnie.
Yeah.
Took them. They went on the jet with me, and they observed, and it was a completely different clinical experience than the Boulder Hospital. Boulder Hospital was good, but it was a completely different experience, in a center of excellence. It really was. The doctors, the quality, how they looked at things, it was amazing. And great hands. I thought it was good hands in Boulder, but here's the thing. We got there, and the money shot, the picture that they needed to decide to do the surgery wasn't there. Somehow, of all the records, that one picture didn't get on the plane. And so they couldn't proceed to do surgery. I walked in, they were me, oh yeah, we're doing surgery, but you're the best person to ever do a second heart surgery on the in the country. And I said, all right, that's great. That's what I want to see. And they said, we don't have the document we need. So they called, they said, you guys need to send the records from Boulder so we have this. And we kept waiting. It kept waiting another day. And the Cleveland Clinic people are observing. Okay. And they didn't, it turns out like the records aren't here. Another day. And finally, it turns out that they sent it by snail mail. The hospital sent it by snail mail. So they couldn't do it. Okay. They couldn't do the surgery. And they said, we're doing the same imaging and, we don't have the information. So we had to get someone, go to the records department and FedEx the records to Cleveland.
Okay.
But here's the thing, the delay of that time of when they got that, when they finally got the records and they were testing me every single day and doing imaging inside, transesophageal echo to visualize inside, the doctor, the best cardiologist, okay, for this heart surgeon, for this particular procedure, says to me at the end of the day, he said, the image, the growth that was on your heart, it was whatever size it was, it's gone now. And I said, well, where did it go? Because he said, we're not going to do surgery. The growth is not there. And I said, well, where did it go? He said, I kid you not, your body sent it somewhere. This is the Cleveland Clinic, the best heart surgeon, your body sent it somewhere. And I said, thank you, and we're going home. No second heart surgery, no more strokes. And whatever it was, my body did what it needed to do with it. So here's the thing. What I would go back and tell my younger self is 2 words. And they're really the major premise in 2 words, which is trust life. That's what chiropractic is about. The chiropractic principle is about trusting life, right? That's what we teach people. When we're adjusting people, we're saying trust your body, trust the process of life, and let's make sure there's not obstructions in that will impact, your ability to strive. Now, there's a time and place for medications and surgeries and interventions for sure. And at the same time, trust how you've been guided. I have no doubt that if I hadn't gone to be a chiropractor, I'd be dead. Also, if I hadn't met my wife, I married someone else, right? That would have maybe just said, do the surgery versus said something different. I wouldn't be alive. You're guided in so many steps, and the more you can trust that guidance, that you're on the path you're supposed to be, the better your life's going to be. So, and I feel that's something that our culture doesn't teach people, and it's something that's not uplifted enough. So that's what I would say.
I think, wow, that was such an awesome ending to our entire conversation because, talk about struggle and emerge victorious with an overall premise of trusting life. And here's the thing, doctor, in our world today, I don't know of a time when things have been more crazy, more disorganized. I see people every day and they're like, the stress that I'm under right now because there's no certainty. That message could not come at a better time, truly. So I can't thank you enough for giving that message, because I know that right now in our world, that message is going to be so well received. It's unbelievable.
Well, thank you. And thank you for the opportunity of letting me share. I really appreciate what you guys are doing. So thank you for taking the time to, allow me the opportunity to share, and hopefully it impacts some chiropractors and, people of all walks of life that listen.
If people want more information, they want to get in touch with you, what is the best way they can get in touch with Dr. Daniel Knowles and get more of you?
Well, the best way would be find me on Facebook, friend me, okay, and get to Mile High. If that resonates with you, that's the message of the Mile High Weekend to Trust Life. RiseUpToMileHigh.com. There's no higher program in chiropractic. So we're a Mile High. So you want to be there, September 21st to 24th. And if you want to see
it on the board right behind you there.
Yeah, there you go. And if you want to, learn more about our mentoring, go to lifetimewellnesspractice.com. And we have a private inner circle, LWPinnercircle.com. And you can reach me and discover more there. And we're here to help people give more, serve more, and receive more.
Love it. Thank you so much for being here, Doc. What a pleasure it was, an honor actually to meet you.
Well, thank you.
So you've heard the struggles, you've heard the successes, and this episode is done. But there's still so much more to come and so much more to learn. So head on over to chiropracticphilanthropist.com and sign up for our newsletter, or just get tons of amazing downloads and free resources. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next time on the Chiropractic Philanthropist.